Here's something that nobody talks about openly, and honestly, maybe they should. There is a reason why a woman will walk past a room full of guys in their mid-20s and find herself completely drawn to the one man standing quietly in the corner, slightly older, saying nothing, doing absolutely nothing flashy, and yet she cannot stop thinking about him. This is not luck. This is not some random chemistry accident, and it is definitely not about his hairline. What I am about to tell you today, most women know this, but we do not say it out loud because, honestly, it sounds a little too revealing. It sounds like we are giving away the playbook. And today, I am giving away the playbook. Stay with me because by the end of this video, you will understand something about attraction that most dating coaches, who, by the way, are usually 25-year-old men in backwards caps, will never tell you. Okay, so let me set the scene here. A few years ago, a study published in the journal Evolution and Human Behavior found that women across cultures, not just Western ones, not just American ones, across the world, consistently reported that emotional maturity, stability, and what researchers called resource holding potential were ranked higher in long-term attraction than physical age alone. Translation: women are not just tolerating older men. Women are actively choosing them, and the reasons are not what you think. Now, before anyone comes for me in the comments, yes, attraction is complex. Yes, every woman is different, but there are 3 specific things that come up again and again in conversations women have with their closest friends, in therapy sessions, in those 2 a.m. voice notes to their best friends that start with, "Okay, don't judge me, but," and none of these 3 things are ever said directly to the man they are about. Why? Because saying it out loud feels too powerful, too vulnerable, like handing someone a remote control to your emotions and saying, "Here, please don't change the channel." So, I am going to say them, all 3, and I am going to break down why these things work the way they do, because understanding the psychology behind them is what actually makes this information useful, not just interesting gossip. Let's get into it. This one hit me like a wall the first time I really paid attention to it. There is something that happens when you spend time around a man who genuinely does not need you to think he is cool, not in an arrogant way. That is different, and women clock arrogance immediately, trust me, but in the quiet, settled, I know who I am kind of way. The man who orders what he actually wants at a restaurant instead of scanning to see what everyone else is having. The man who disagrees with a room full of people and does it calmly without sweating. The man who doesn't check his phone every 3 minutes at dinner, waiting for someone to validate his existence through a notification. That quality has a name in psychology. It's called non-reactive confidence, and it is one of the most attractive things a human being can possess, regardless of age. But here is the thing. It is extraordinarily rare in younger men and significantly more common in older men. Not because older men are magically better, but because it takes years of getting it wrong, looking stupid, failing publicly, and surviving it to actually stop caring what strangers think of you. Let me explain how this plays out in real life. A woman walks into a social setting. She is talking to 2 men. Man A, younger, is charming, funny, trying hard. She can feel him trying. Every joke has an invisible question mark at the end of it. Did that land? Do you think I'm funny? Are you impressed? Man B, older, is engaged, present, occasionally funny, not trying to be anything other than what he is, and something in a woman's nervous system just exhales around Man B. It is not conscious at first. It feels like he's easy to talk to, but what's actually happening is that she doesn't feel the invisible pressure of needing to perform back. She doesn't feel like she has to manage his emotional temperature. She can just be there, and that is wildly rare and wildly attractive. Here is the data point that will shock you. According to a survey conducted by dating platform eHarmony, women who cited emotional security as their top priority in a partner were 3 times more likely to be in relationships with men 5 or more years older. 3 times. That is not a small number. That is a pattern. Now here's the part that nobody says out loud. Women are tired, not in a dramatic way, just in the completely human way of having spent years navigating relationships where they were the emotional anchor, where they managed moods, softened edges, talked someone off a ledge of insecurity, and when a man shows up who simply does not need that from her, it is not just attractive, it is a relief so profound it almost feels suspicious. She will text her friend, "He's so easy to be around. I don't know what it is." What it is that he stopped outsourcing his self-worth somewhere around his late 30s, and she can feel it. This is worth noting. The absence of neediness is not coldness. That is a mistake a lot of people make. Non-reactive confidence doesn't mean emotionally unavailable. It means emotionally grounded. There is a massive difference between a man who doesn't need constant reassurance and a man who is just checked out. Women know the difference immediately. Do not confuse the two. The takeaway here is this, and I want you to sit with it. The most magnetic version of any man at any age is the one who has made peace with himself, who has had enough experiences, enough failures, enough embarrassing moments that he no longer runs from discomfort or performs for approval. That is a lived quality. You cannot fake it. You can only build it. And older men, on average, have had more time to build it. Oh, this one. This one is the big one. And women will almost never say this to a man's face because it sounds like we are comparing, but we are comparing internally, constantly, with everything we have ever experienced before. Here is what happens in most communication with younger men, and I say this with love, I genuinely do. Most conflict ends up in one of two places. Either it becomes a full-scale emotional explosion where everyone says things they do not mean and then spends 3 days recovering, or it goes completely underground. The silent treatment, the I'm fine, the passive-aggressive, single-word replies, and nothing ever actually gets resolved. The issue just gets buried until it resurfaces 3 months later during an argument about dishes. Older men, men who have been through enough relationships, enough uncomfortable conversations, enough moments of watching something fall apart because nobody said the right thing at the right time, they communicate differently. Not perfectly, not always, but differently. Here is what it looks like specifically. They name what is happening without catastrophizing it. Instead of, "You always do this," which, by the way, is the verbal equivalent of setting a room on fire, they say, "Hey, something felt off to me earlier. Can we talk about it?" They separate the moment from the identity. They do not turn a conversation into a courtroom where someone has to be convicted. They can also hold silence without it feeling like punishment. This sounds small, and it is enormous. A comfortable silence with someone where neither of you feels the pressure to fill every second with words is one of the most intimate things that exists. Younger men often panic in silence. Older men breathe in it, and women notice. Brené Brown, researcher, author, arguably one of the most quoted people in modern psychology, has spent decades studying vulnerability and connection. Her research consistently shows that the ability to sit with discomfort, to resist the urge to immediately fix or defend or deflect, is a cornerstone of emotional intimacy. Most people only develop that capacity after getting it catastrophically wrong a few times, which takes, you guessed it, time. There is also something deeply specific that happens around the age of 40 in a lot of men, and I say this based on conversations I have had, patterns I have observed, and research I have read. Men in their late 30s and 40s, the ones who have done any kind of self-reflection at all, start communicating with intention rather than reaction. They have learned that saying the first thing that comes to mind in an argument is almost always a mistake. They have learned that walking away for 20 minutes and coming back with a clearer head is not weakness, it is wisdom. They have learned that "I need a moment to think about this" is one of the most disarming, trust-building sentences a person can say. And women, we are standing there watching this happen and trying to play it cool while internally screaming, "Where has this been my entire life?" Here is the part that is almost funny in a bittersweet way. Women will sometimes meet a man who communicates this clearly, this calmly, this intentionally, and their first thought is not, "Wonderful, this is healthy." Their first thought is often, "What is wrong with him?" Because we have been so conditioned to expect communication to be a battlefield that when it isn't, when it is actually pleasant and functional, it feels suspicious. It takes a moment to trust that it is real, but once she trusts it, it is over. He has her full attention because there is nothing, absolutely nothing, more attractive than feeling genuinely heard, and older men, more often than not, have learned how to do that. There is a Harvard study, part of the famous Harvard study of adult development, one of the longest-running studies on human happiness, that found the single greatest predictor of well-being in midlife and beyond was the quality of a person's close relationships. And quality in this context meant specifically the capacity for honest, non-destructive communication. The men in that study who had developed that capacity were rated by their partners as more attractive, more trustworthy, and more desirable long-term. Not the richest men. Not the best-looking men, the ones who could talk. Let that land. This might be the most counterintuitive one on this list, and it is also the one that women are most reluctant to admit because it sounds cold when you say it plainly. But here it is, said plainly. A woman does not want to be your whole world. She wants to be a priority in your world. Those are two very different things, and the difference between them is what separates thrilling relationships from suffocating ones. Older men, men who have had careers, built things, traveled somewhere, developed actual hobbies that are not just watching sports or going to the gym. These men have an inherent fullness to them. They have opinions that were formed through real experience, not just scrolling. They have stories that do not start and end with something that happened at a bar. They have passions that existed before she walked in, and that will exist whether she approves of them or not, and that fullness is magnetic. Here is why. From an evolutionary psychology standpoint, and I know that sounds like a lot, but stay with me because this is fascinating. Humans are wired to be attracted to competence and purpose. We are drawn to people who are going somewhere. Not in a hustle culture grind until you collapse way, but in the simple, fundamental sense of a person who knows what they care about and is actively engaged with their own life. An older man who has a business he built, or a craft he has spent years perfecting, or a circle of friends he has known for decades, or a cause he actually cares about. That man walks into a room differently. He carries something with him that is almost impossible to manufacture, genuine engagement with his own existence. And here is the fascinating psychological flip side of this. When a man has his own full life, it creates what psychologists call scarcity value. Not in a manipulative sense, but in the very simple sense that his time and attention mean something because they are not infinitely available. When a younger man makes a woman the center of his entire universe on date 3, when she knows that if she texts at midnight, she will get a response in 4 seconds. When she realizes that his schedule bends completely around hers, it does not feel like love. It feels like pressure. It feels like responsibility. Like now she has to manage his emotional ecosystem because she accidentally became his only one. Older men have typically made enough mistakes in that department to know better. They have been the guy who texted back in 4 seconds and watched the attraction evaporate. They have learned, sometimes painfully, that maintaining your own life is not playing games. It is just being a whole person. There is a specific moment that women describe, and I have heard this version of this story more times than I can count, where they are seeing an older man and he says something like, "I can't do Saturday. I have something with the guys I've been planning for a while, but what about Sunday?" And the woman's first instinct is mild, irrational annoyance. And then, almost immediately, she is twice as interested in Sunday than she ever was in Saturday. That is not manipulation. That is just a man with a life, and it is almost embarrassingly attractive. The great irony here, and this one is genuinely funny when you think about it, is that the more a man makes a woman feel like he is a complex, layered, genuinely interesting person with things going on, the more she wants to know every single thing about him. She wants access to that world. She wants to be the person he comes home to after Saturday with the guys. She is not being chased into interest. She is falling into it naturally because there is actually something there to fall into. Compare this to a man whose entire personality orbits around the relationship from day one, who wants to know where she is, who she is with, why she has not texted back yet, and the contrast is stark. That behavior, which often comes from insecurity and a lack of independent identity, is the single fastest way to flatten attraction. It does not matter how good-looking he is. Neediness without substance is a deal breaker at a cellular level. Women cannot explain it logically in the moment. They just suddenly feel like something is off, and they cannot name why. What is off is the absence of a self. And older men, most of them, have had enough time to build one. So let's bring this full circle, because I want you to actually walk away with something real here, not just a list. The 3 things women love about older men, the non-reactive confidence, the grounded communication, and the fullness of an actual life, are not really about age at all. That is the twist. Age is just the context in which most men happen to develop these qualities, but they are qualities. They are buildable. They are learnable. They are things a man at any age can choose to work toward, if he understands what he is actually working toward. What women are responding to is not the gray at the temples, although, let's be honest, that doesn't hurt. What women are responding to is wholeness. A man who has processed enough of his own story to be present in someone else's. A man who communicates like an adult because he has finally stopped performing for an invisible audience. A man whose life is rich enough that sharing it with someone is a genuine invitation, not a rescue operation. That is the secret that women don't say out loud. Not because it is shameful, but because it is almost too revealing. Saying, I am attracted to men who are emotionally grounded, communicate clearly, and have their own lives, sounds so reasonable that it almost doesn't sound like attraction at all. It sounds like a wellness checklist, but in practice, in a real room with a real man in a real moment, it hits differently. It hits in the chest, and now you know. But here is what I need you to do with this information, and this is the part that actually matters. Don't just file this away as an interesting fact you heard once, because there is a second layer to all of this. Knowing what women are attracted to is step one. The step most people miss is understanding how women signal that attraction, because they rarely say it directly. Women do not walk up to a man and announce, I find your emotional groundedness extremely appealing. They send signals, subtle ones that are easy to miss if you don't know what you are looking for, and very, very easy to lose if you respond to them wrong. And that is exactly why the next video you need to watch right now, not after you check your phone, not later, right now, is the one sitting on your screen. It is called 4 Subtle Signals Every Woman Sends When She Wants to Be Won Over and Men Lose. Here is why this is urgent. Everything I just told you in this video is the foundation. But the signal video, that is where it gets dangerous in the best possible way. Because there are men losing women every single day. Not because they lack attraction, not because they said the wrong thing, but because a woman sent them a clear, unmistakable signal that she wanted to be pursued and they missed it completely. Or worse, they saw it, panicked, and overreacted in exactly the wrong direction. That video breaks down exactly what those signals look like, why women send them instead of just saying what they want, and the part that is going to make you pause, what the most common male responses are that kill the whole thing instantly. If you just spent this entire video learning what she is drawn to, the next logical move is to learn what she is telling you when she is ready. Don't skip that step. Don't be the man who had all the pieces and still walked away from the puzzle. Tap the video, watch it now. I'll see you there.